Hi, my name is Mikael, and welcome to Any Bit Fever Dreams. Today I wanted to make a video on why I got a F256K from Retro Phoenix Systems. I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why I did this. I talk about it all the time on social media, but now I'm going to go deeper in my explanations. So stay tuned. Reason number 1 is immediate access to the metal. Exposed register addresses, no memory protection. This is considered really bad nowadays, but it's absolutely a positive bonus here. Devices that are accessible straight up without layers of API and software made by other people. 2 words describe the mindset behind all of this very well: peek and poke. Anyone with 10 minutes of Commodore 64 experience and who had to type in some basic program listing from a book or a computer magazine has encountered those. You get your data from RAM with a peek, and you insert your own values with poke. If you do it properly in the right order, you get rewarded with computer magic. You can get music emerging from the right programming incantation. You can see sprites dance about on the screen. This is a feeling of having unlocked access you'll see older computer users blab on about endlessly. The reward is the immediate feedback loop of trying something and getting a result, good or bad. The price to pay is that it is crash prone, but it is entirely your responsibility in how you approach things with your code, rather than some obscure reason hidden in the modern layers of today's frameworks. This machine was made by a fellow Canadian, and if I'm getting specific, a fellow Quebecer. Reason number 2 is all about local home pride. Quebec is the largest province of Canada, nearing 9 million people, famously known for its official language being French, surrounded on all sides by a continent approaching 400 million people speaking mostly English, Spanish, and many other languages. It's always good to be aware of good accomplishments made by the people that come from home. Phoenix Retro Systems is a one-person army of technical know-how now residing on the west coast of Canada. Stéphanie Allaire has a professional electronic background paired with FPGA programming and mechanical design experience. We regularly see people in the retro computer world going on and making fabulous new projects that help out many others trying to keep the hobby alive for old stuff or creating entirely new hardware and software. We almost never see it at this high level of do-it-all, like what Steph has done all alone, which is create an entire retro computer architecture not just for one computer, but an entire ecosystem of almost a dozen computers. Designing beautiful mechanical enclosures that align with a unifying vision, adding so many sound devices and video options that are a true love letter that pays respect to retro computing across the decades of the 80s and 90s alike. Tying it all together with FPGA programming, she's also the only one stepped into the 68K new retro computer space. She absolutely deserves awareness, recognition, and respect for her accomplishments. We should support creators that go out on a limb and do a courageous act of creating new things for all to enjoy. The niche within a niche of new retro computers, where you'll find competitors like the Commander X16 from the 8-bit guy, or the Mega 65, the Aegon Lite, and the ZX Spectrum Next are all deserving projects that should have a place at the table. Rising tide lifts all boats. Reason number 3 is the impressive collection of features from several parts of my computer usage history. I'll be honest, I'm a computer sound and music fiend when it comes to the retro world. I spend countless hours crafting a complicated audio setup for my MIDI gear, for my old Macs, old PCs, and now the newest F256K version 2, which I'll get to in a future video. I lived through the age of computers between 1989 and 95 or so, where getting a new sound card was considered a much bigger upgrade than getting the latest video card after a 5-year wait. New sound was absolutely transformative to your computer experience, but mostly gaming experience. A core memory from the 80s is hearing some wicked SID chip music from my older cousin's Commodore 64. Those sick chip tunes, bass and beat and modulated melodies always made the 10-minute loading time from tapes or discs worth it. That's why the F256K pays respect to this absolute classic of sound and makes not one, but two SID chips available for a total of 6 channels of programmable classic sound. You can hear an example of someone's port of Ultima 3 making good use of it. Next, the early 90s were when I finally went to the PC side all the way to today as my main computers. This meant I started out with the humble PC speaker for my games, soon followed by an ad-lib card which gave us the very nostalgic, very respected OPL Yamaha sound chip found in arcades, the Genesis or Mega Drive, and late 80s to late 90s PCs. Here we have an OPL3 and hardware chip form, and I feel like it's an entirely new world to explore, perhaps even more complicated to master than the SID. I guess I'll find out. There's also the way much simpler pulse signal generator, which on first impressions will resemble like a very early 80s computer sound option. It can do noise if you want to mimic a snare or a bass drum for some very cheap percussion, but you can also feed it data very rapidly and do what Jason did, a completely lo-fi .mod file tracker. Since it's in the FPGA, it comes in a pair for the left and right channels, and you therefore have access to 3 square wave tones, plus a noise channel for each PSG. Reason number 4 is the great community. I've never had the chance to belong to a genuine computer club in the 80s or 90s. These organizations sprung up at the start of the personal computer age in the late 70s, early 80s, because frankly, that world was just starting up and the first waves of personal computers were anything but user-friendly. People needed to band together to figure out how to do basic tasks. Folks with the programming inclination happily shared their newest accomplishments to get some praise and clout. I can only describe the community forming around the Phoenix computers as top-notch. It's obvious these people have a deep passion and respect for retro computing and helping each other. Most people go out of their way to openly share their source code, their time and energy to help you out getting set up and contributing your own projects. I can't overlook an important pillar of the community who goes by the nickname Gadget and who wrote the microkernel used on the 8-bit side and seems to master every computer science concept on the face of the earth and spends some spare time writing a virtual machine OS powering multiple platforms, including the F256. I don't claim to understand every detail of those projects, but by just sitting in the same Discord, I can absorb a little by osmosis. I could do a full video on the many wonderful contributions to games, demos, tools, and newsletters, but I feel like they deserve better focused attention and smaller videos, so I'll move on to the last reason why I got a F256K. Aesthetics and simplicity. I'll fully admit that the last reason is tied to a feeling. I could have chased the other four reasons and other platforms spread all over the place. But why do that when there's this little single object looking like a beautiful artifact that does it all? I didn't get any of the previous Phoenix computers that started launching a few years back. I was lurking in the Discord and watching what was happening with admiration, but I didn't get involved back in about 2021. But then something clicked with the announcement of the release of the F256K in late 2022. It was an all-in-one wedge computer that I could understand. It was a culmination of all other variants that came before it and corrected previous mistakes. It still had restrictions on memory, video modes, and everything, but restrictions and boundaries are good in the retro world. It's what defines the character of the computer. I saw those close-up pictures of the keyboard and the case, and it was at that moment when I realized it would be the whole ecosystem's flagship computer, both in looks and approachability. This was just my hunch, and today, in hindsight, it turns out I was right. The F256K and its cheaper single-board computer F256 Junior are out in the wild in greater numbers than any other machines, in the hundreds. Some people criticize the price tag of $595 US, but when you get the whole package without having to fight for a power supply, a case, or worry about adding sound options, it's an amazing deal for all it can do. You're paying for the reunion of capabilities, reliability, and the low-volume fabrication of a niche project. I couldn't have come up with 5% of all that, and I've spent time in that hobby almost all my entire adult life. I know I'm not alone when I bought this kit from Ben Eater, where you basically build a 6502 computer on a breadboard and you painstakingly add a small LCD screen, a ROM chip, some VIA chips, and you get it linked to devices such as push buttons. You have to strip every individual wires, and any mistake is extremely costly in terms of time and frustration. When it's done, you're rewarded with having to do assembly coding with very limited RAM and pain and misery. Don't get me wrong, it's fun and super informative on how computers work, but to get from that level to an enjoyable computer is a really, really steep mountain to climb. I'm glad the heavy lifting is entirely done when I plug in a Phoenix computer and get to play away with sprites and sound and gamepad inputs. To wrap things up in this video, I can leave you with a quick overview of where things stand since I received my unit in May of 2023. The Phoenix ecosystem is now 3 purchasable flagship computers where all the future energy is going to be concentrated on. The F256K2 is your platform for 8-bit and 16-bit computing in a wedge case format. It supports the 6502, the 65816, and the 6809, and even more sound options, which I'll continue to cover on this channel because it's my obsession. The F256 Junior 2, or Junior Junior, is the same deal but in single board computer form, and gives you a much lower bar of entry in terms of price, but you're responsible to provide it power and protection. Next up is a unifying 68060 single-board computer in the same vein as the Junior, but this is the purchasable flagship of the 68K part of the Phoenix ecosystem. It's the A2560M. There used to be wedge-shaped cases with integrated keyboards with this class of Motorola 68K processors, in fact many of them, but this is supposed to be the new hotness. Keep in mind that there's no other new retro computer project that targets this processor at all, not to my knowledge. So if you're after an Amiga-like reimagined retro fever dream, this is the place to be. All the older machines will benefit from this simplification and will keep getting firmware updates where it makes sense. I want to thank you for your attention and please help me spread awareness to this great continuing project. It costs basically nothing to share this video, but the impact can be real on Phoenix Retro Systems and its founder, Stéphanie Allaire. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.